Hey, welcome. We're so glad you're joining us here for Christ Church of Flagstaff and our weekend worship experience here on YouTube, Facebook. Friends, welcome. Please let us know you're here. Put a comment. Just say hi, good morning, good afternoon, whenever you're watching this.
Maybe an emoji.
Emojis
get
are
an
so
emoji.
good.
Throw one up there. Why
Love
not?
it. Hey, Garrett, I saw something this week. Actually, I saw it a couple weeks ago. I was watching it again recently. This guy on YouTube, Mark Roper's his name, and he was trying to make his bird feeder
You're pretty excited about this.
squirrel-proof.
Yeah.
Have you seen this thing?
You told me about it just recently.
Yeah. So Mark is like a mechanical engineer or something like that, and now a spokesperson for like this company that sells gadgets and gizmos. And he made an American Ninja Warrior. You ever watch that show, American Ninja Warrior?
Have I watched the show? Yes.
Right, like those people are amazing.
Yeah.
He made an American Ninja Warrior type course for the squirrels in his backyard. So creative. You see some pictures on YouTube, super fun. 27 million views right now on his main one. I just love creativity, and it just excites me. Have you seen anything creative this week? Anything
Absolutely.
caught your attention?
Well, I mean, it's definitely like not to the level of Ninja Warrior for squirrels, but one thing I saw, just local friends of ours at Indian Bible College, just in the last week or two, they've been posting a lot to their Instagram page. And so I would encourage you right now, like pause this, go to Instagram and follow Indian Bible College, IBC. They're local partners of ours. Yep. You met Daniel last week in the interview. He works there at IBC, and all I know is they have been posting about this thing called their Hope Team. And their Hope Team is all of these students. The students are the ones making the posts. They're doing all this digital content to try to help engage people in northern Arizona and even help with like mental health issues and just provide hope, make students and people aware of resources. And it's just like, it's high quality. Like they're like, these students are killing it. Like photo quality's good. Like there's creativity, not just in what they're doing, but how it looks.
Yeah.
And I love it. I just love that kind of stuff.
Thanks for one-upping me. I like talking about creativity of a flying squirrel machine.
Yeah.
And then you're talking about like some really cool Jesus stuff.
That's right.
And that's okay. I love it.
Just helping the people connect. You know,
But
that's it. Yeah.
We're having this conversation that you've been a part of, hopefully several weeks, and I just enjoyed doing this so much, is we're talking about the difference. What does it mean for a church, for a group of people who follow Jesus together? That's what a church is. That's what we are.
Right.
How is it that we can go beyond existing and be essential?
This phrase, you know, are we essential?
Right. And we're really looking at, just to remind everybody, through the perspective of the next generation. If we look at people who are coming after us that are older, middle part of life, how can we be essential to them? And we've really identified 5 characteristics or practices of being bold.
Yeah, this is what we see the early church doing.
Right.
These 5 characteristics come from the book of Acts.
Right.
And it's the same things we see every church throughout generations do. They're bold, they're outward, they're creative, they're collaborative, and they're vocal.
Yeah.
That's what we see every time when a church is growing, thriving, and is essential to the next generation.
Right. And so why we started talking about things that we found creative this week is that's our word. That's where we're at, is right in the middle of this list, creative.
Yeah.
And I think when I hear that word, I don't know how you hear that word, Garrett, is sometimes I think of like my daughter has started getting into painting. And
That's
she's
right.
doing like some
Susie's
art and
got
stuff.
some good art.
Yeah.
Go follow Susie Reed on Instagram for that matter. Yeah.
Shameless plug. I didn't even tell you to do that.
No, that's awesome.
And she's going to buy like pizza in college with whatever proceeds she gets from selling her art. So
Smart move.
Susie Reed on Instagram. But creative, I think of people who do art. I think of people who do poetry or they're into theater and like that. That's a side of creative.
Which that's you, right? You were always that way in high school, college, I'm sure.
Some of the poetry I've come up with lately is just like
beautiful. Moving, really.
Yeah. Actually void of
that
content.
is the problem with the word creative for me even. I almost shy away from using it in some settings because I don't want people thinking that being creative means I'm artistic.
Right.
That I can draw, that I'm talented. It actually means something different.
Yeah, we're really talking about this idea of how can you and I, and what we're going to look at is some examples in the early church, the early followers of Jesus, how they were creative in the presenting of the gospel of Jesus. Like the story of Acts is that a bunch of people went out and told the world that Jesus was alive.
Right.
It's based on the event of the resurrection. And we're talking about creative in how we talk about that, how we present that to the world around us. Not creativity in the artistic sense of the word. It could include that, actually.
Yeah.
But we're not talking about creativity in changing that message.
Yeah.
And so really maybe to say it this way is we're talking about how can you and I be creative in our how,
Yes.
not in our what.
That's
as
right.
followers of Jesus, as a church, a collection of those people.
The method of the gospel does, like, it's constantly changing, but the message of the gospel never changes, right? That's
Exactly.
it.
Another way to say it. Very well.
Well, so in Acts 17, as we were studying this last week,
Right.
Acts 17 came up as the chief, prime, beautiful example of how Paul did this creatively. He was talking to people who were not Jewish. They were not from Jerusalem. They were not people who understood the Old Testament or the story of God that we have.
Right.
These were people who worshiped lots of gods, so many gods that they had a statue that they put that said to an unknown God, meaning, hey, if there's any God up there we forgot about, here's your statue. Just tell us your name eventually.
Cover
right?
all the bases.
Covering the bases, right? And Paul shows up and he doesn't talk to them the way Peter does
Right.
in Acts chapter 2. There's a huge difference,
Yeah,
right?
so when you look at the difference of the message of Jesus and how it's presented, the resurrection from Acts 2 to Acts 17, it's the exact same message.
Yep.
Presented by two different people in two different places, Jerusalem, Athens, Greece.
Yep.
To two different, completely different audiences. And the creativity that Paul brings in to Acts 17 is what we want to really jump off of today and share with you and really talk about how does that apply to us? Like, what can we learn from that? What can we glean from that as a church, as a follower of Jesus?
Why don't you do this? You tell us about Paul. Let me say about Peter.
Yeah.
In Acts 2, here's what Peter does. He knows his audience. They're Jewish.
Right.
So you know what he does is he like hits it right over the plate. You know, he talks about Jesus resurrected, but he does it quoting the Old Testament. He just takes a Bible. You know, really, they didn't have the scroll. He takes the memorized stories he's had as a kid of the Old Testament, and he just quotes them. And then he says, Jesus did this. And he right over the plate does a Bible study with them, and they respond because his audience is Jewish. But Paul, what does he do?
Yeah, I mean, you talked about Acts 17. He says, people of Athens, verse 22. I see that every way you're religious. I walked around, I looked carefully at your objects of worship. And anybody who's even traveled to Athens or seen pictures of Greek temples or statues, there's all this stuff, you know, and that's the season Paul's there, all the things that are now in our museums. He's walking around, he's seeing these, he saw your objects of worship. I even found what you said earlier, an altar with this inscription, to an unknown God. He says, you are so ignorant, which wasn't a put down.
No.
He's having a conversation with intellectual people.
They're in the
debate.
dark. They're in the unknown.
He said, you just don't know of the very thing you worship. This is what I'm going to proclaim to you. And then you see these next several verses. Paul doesn't, it's so foreign to us, many of us. Paul doesn't even quote scripture. He doesn't quote the Old Testament. He doesn't quote his own scripture that he's about to write to letters to churches in different places.
Say that again. The guy who wrote most of the New Testament doesn't use the Bible to lead these people to Jesus.
No, he tells them the story of Jesus, the story of God and resurrecting his son, Jesus, who died for the sins of humanity. And the only thing he quotes is actually one of their own poets who says, we are his offspring, verse 28. You can see this. It's all here.
Yeah, verse 28, he quotes a Greek poet.
A Greek poet. He uses a contemporary Greek poet, not even a classical one, like one Homer. You know, he doesn't quote the Iliad or the Odyssey, which had been written before this. He quotes like that week's guy, Flavor of the Week.
Right.
Because that's who they were all talking about.
Yep.
And he uses a totally different method. He's so creative.
Yeah.
And not using the Old Testament. He tells people about Jesus, and it tells us at the end of that chapter, some of the people believed.
Yeah.
Became followers and believed. And it tells some of their names. It's as if Luke is saying as he writes this, you don't believe me? Go talk to Dionysus and Demarius. I don't know how to say these people. And Fred and Wilma.
Yeah,
you know, like they followed, they understood. And then did he teach them more? Of course. But how he got them to Jesus was so creative and so different than what Peter with like the home team.
Yep.
People who all saw the world the same way. They all had the Old Testament, the Hebrew Jewish religion in their background. And we have to just...
Well, so what you're saying, it's like Acts 17 is this picture of how creative he got to Jesus' resurrection. He got to introducing them to Jesus, but he did it without a Bible.
Right.
And he did it in such a way that they heard it. I mean, it says a lot about Paul, how creative he was, that he knew the current flavor of the philosopher, of the poet of that day, so that he could relevantly bring Jesus to it. Here's what you're saying. There are things about how Paul spoke about Jesus that were always changing. Yeah. He wouldn't do this in Lystra or Iconium, as we read in earlier chapters in Acts this week. He always changed it to where he was, but the message, the gospel never did. And we live in a time right now where if we had to compare ourselves, are we more like a group of people? Is America, is Arizona, is Northern Arizona a city that's more like Acts chapter 2 Jerusalem? Or is it more like Acts 17 Athens? And it's Acts 17, right?
Right. No,
like,
I think
we're
it's
more in an Acts 17 mindset than Acts 2.
And as much as we want some of us who can remember a time where our world and our culture felt like Jerusalem in Acts 2,
Right.
that's not what we're in anymore. And we want that. But you can't even argue the point. We live in a pluralistic Athens, Greek, Acts 17 world.
Yep.
And so that is so exciting to me because it allows us to be so creative in the how we present the gospel of Jesus to our world, especially this whole series. We're trying to remember, look through the lens of the next generation.
Yeah.
How do we become essential to them?
Yeah.
So they grow up in a church, in a community, or come here for college or whatever it is.
Right.
And they go, I can't miss out on that. That is essential for my life. And that is us. It's the body of Christ.
Yeah. Here's my problem is I agree with you. I love it. It sounds good. The issue is back in the book of Acts, there were still, as awesome as Paul was with his creativity, obstacles to him being creative.
Yeah.
We have them today too.
Yeah.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
But right now, what are some observations we can show you about, let's have a conversation here. What are the obstacles that showed up in the book of Acts that kept the first Christians from being creative? The first one, you mentioned this earlier, and I love that you used this word on purpose. It was approval ratings.
Yeah.
People got a little worked up about their approval rating, and it kept the early church from being creative. What do you mean by that?
Acts 12. If you've been reading along with us, and I hope you have, a few days ago you may have, or you're about to read Acts chapter 12.
Yeah.
Here's how it starts. It says, it was about this time that King Herod arrested some who belonged to the church, intending to persecute them. He had James, the brother of Jesus, put to death with the sword. So Herod is kind of this, bad guy. He's killed John the Baptist.
Right.
He rules part of the country on behalf of Rome. He sees this new thing happening in the church. It's taking over his culture in ways he doesn't really appreciate.
Right.
And he kills James, brother of John. All throughout the story of Jesus, he's involved. And he's this guy that just was a leader in the church. And then verse 3, when he saw that this met with approval among the Jews, he proceeded to seize Peter also.
Yeah.
So he for whatever his motivation is, we don't know. He has James put to death.
Yeah.
He's killed. And he sees that this made his approval ratings, like the people at the research group, whatever.
We pulled some data for you,
We pulled some
Herod.
data. We looked at the constituents and the people in Iowa, the people in this place, that place, Arizona. They all approved this.
Yeah.
And he goes, ooh, that made me go up.
Yeah.
With the people.
When you got rid of James, that was a good move.
Let's go for Peter. He's the high-profile target here.
Right.
They arrest Peter. And approval ratings.
Right.
I mean, we're going to move from COVID and all things we've been dealing with, racial tensions and issues, to an election.
Yeah, just
and
a few
approval
months away,
ratings.
right?
Yeah. If you haven't started hearing about them, you will. They're coming. And I just think when we go for approval, it's an obstacle to creativity.
Yeah, it is.
Because you have to think, if I'm trying to get people to approve of me as a pastor, you as a parent, you're trying to get your kids to approve of you, you lose the opportunity for creativity as a boss, as an employee. When you go, am I working for approval? There's other examples.
Yeah, you mentioned this earlier.
Yeah.
I thought this was a good story. You mentioned that in Acts chapter 16, approval rating is directly connected to financial gain.
Can be.
And
Yeah,
and it's so interesting because one of the obstacles to the early church was the financial tension here. And I love that it says in Acts 16, when the owners of this slave girl realized that their hope of making money was gone, they seized Paul and Silas, dragged them into the marketplace to face the authorities.
Right.
There was this amazing moment in their life as Paul was trying to do his thing, he was preaching all this, and all of the sudden, because it was putting at risk a group of people, their ability to make money.
Yeah, so how was that? What's the backstory?
Well, yeah,
to that?
what was it, Acts
You remember-
16?
Yes.
No, yeah, tell us about
So
it.
this girl keeps coming up to Paul and Silas, and she's possessed by demons. And that's a whole nother like thing we could talk about someday.
Sure.
Cup of coffee type of talk.
That sounds good.
She keeps saying things, and it says Paul gets annoyed with her, basically, in Acts 16, a few verses earlier. And he's tired of her harassing him, and it's not really her, it's the forces of evil inside of her that are living inside of her, quite literally. But what she does is she tells people's fortunes for a group of men who charge money. So she's a commodity to them. She's not a person. Like, these demons give her the ability to do things that nobody else can do.
Right.
And it's profitable for them.
Sure.
And so Paul, in exasperation, tells the demons in her to leave in the name of Jesus. And they leave, and her ability to like tell
It affected
your
their economy.
fortune or like whatever she was doing, this, like this thing that made these guys money was gone.
Their income was gone.
Right. And so they saw her as a commodity. Their approval rating, their economics changed. And when our economics change, sometimes we throw up an obstacle to creativity. Another example, Acts 13, verse 45. Paul's in, I don't remember what place this is. It tells you in Pisidian Antioch.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, really beautiful place to visit this time of year. You should go.
Okay, I'll check it out.
I don't know, I've never been. But it says, when the Jews saw the crowds, they were filled with jealousy. They began to contradict what Paul was saying and heaped abuse on them. Paul's coming to a synagogue and saying to all the people in attendance at this place of worshiping God, hey, the thing you've been talking about, Messiah, he came. He came in Jerusalem, he died, he resurrected. He's telling the story creatively, and it caused jealousy because it just simply is. If the guy that was running the synagogue is losing his audience to this new guy, his approval rating went down, his numbers went down, his significance went down, whatever it was. He got jealous. And they throw Paul in prison, they beat him, and
help me connect these stories. You said earlier, what we're looking at is all these obstacles to creativity today. These are the stories in Acts. What happened today? What is happening today that is similar to that? Or to say it differently, what is the connection for all of us in this conversation as to, well, how is creativity being blocked for us because of approval rating?
So I think for many times as a leader, maybe a leader of a church, a pastor, we have to really decide, are we going to move a group of people forward in the way that makes the group that's here comfortable and happy? Or are we going to be creative?
I see.
Again, not in changing the gospel message, but in how we do it. Because here's what I've experienced, I've been going to church since I was 5 years old, over 40 years, and what I experience as a part of a church now is so different then. And you've experienced that, and all of us have experienced, and maybe you've sat in a church, our church, some other church, and said, this doesn't feel like my church anymore. It's changed.
Change even comes quicker now than it used to.
It has to.
In
every area of our world, including the gospel, because we just have to be honest. If when the creative presentation of the gospel, a change in our church, makes you uncomfortable, it makes you question, is this my church? Because it's not how it used to be. Then are you...
I'm not getting mad. I'm not getting mad at the gospel. It's like I'm getting mad at the change.
And usually the person who made the change. But that's okay, I digress. But I think we all have to say in that moment where the creative change of the gospel to help reach the next generation, help reach somebody different than you, does that make you put up an obstacle? Is your approval rating going down? Like, hey, this church isn't about me, it's for younger people. It's for families. But that used to be you. That's how you got here. And then we've always, as a church, looked at the next generation. And some of us, now we're not the next generation anymore. And we feel like, and how, I would just say, get prayerfully involved. Like, God, how do I help in this moment that my church is shifting, and it's going to continue to shift?
And as you talk about approval rating, for someone like you, your senior pastor, you get the emails. You get the people saying, I like this, I don't like this, Which then leads to the second obstacle, which you find in the book of Acts was happening all the time, but it happens to us today still. The second obstacle to creativity, first was approval rating, second is Christians arguing. That when Christians start spending more time debating, slicing, scrutinizing, and trying to walk through this. We're not talking about the time it takes to gently lead change. We're talking about when we are vehemently opposed to something and we're trying to convince someone otherwise.
Yeah.
That kind of arguing happened in Acts chapter 15.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I think the two things Christians are best at are potluck dinners and arguing with each other.
Yeah.
And one's really awesome and
Yeah.
the other is not. And you decide which one's which.
Right. Casserole.
Yeah.
Casserole.
Oh, man.
Yeah, casserole's
Being a
always the
kid
best.
in a small church in the Midwest, potlucks are the best.
Right. But the arguing comes up all the time. And that even
Yeah.
in Acts 15,
Acts 15.
this Jerusalem council, right?
Yeah.
What's the reason it even had to get together?
Paul and Barnabas are out. They're going to all these places we've been reading about, encountering already obstacles, telling people about Jesus. And they're
Yep.
telling people who aren't Jewish about Jesus. And then people from Jerusalem, the church in Jerusalem, Christians from Jerusalem go. In addition to what we saw of Herod, we saw the
Right.
the people who were losing their money, the Jews in the town who weren't following Jesus. Now, Jews from Jerusalem have come to all these places
Yeah.
and said, hey, what Paul's telling you is good, but you also have to become Jewish.
Yep.
And you have to do all the physical rituals, the dietary rules. You have to be kosher. You have to be circumcised.
The first Christians who were Jewish origin
Right.
were overwhelmed by how many non-Jewish people were becoming Christians.
Right.
So they kind of like, hey, let's slow this down.
Yeah.
Let's remind you need to do these Jewish things.
Is what they thought.
That's what they thought.
Yeah. And
Yes.
so Paul and Barnabas have to leave the mission field and this journey of starting churches and encouraging people and Greeks
Right.
and Jews and this multi-ethnic. It was a beautiful thing happening. They had to
Right.
go to Jerusalem. I mean, this wasn't like a quick flight.
This is what I mean. In our day, to
The
think,
journey.
oh, you just had to go a couple hundred miles.
Right.
Well, back then, that was a 2 to 3 week journey.
Yeah.
They had to find the money to get there. I mean, like, this was a huge stop to creativity.
They go to Jerusalem. They have this whole big meeting of all the church leaders, which is the appropriate thing to do. They had a conversation. They got on the same page. Praise
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
And then they went back out. But this argument of what is it? Do you have to be Jewish to follow Jesus? Can you change my church to try to reach the next generation? And when we have to stop and deal with this so much, it stops creative momentum. It still
Yeah.
happens today.
So let's shift the conversation then. Let's talk about at home in our lives right now, how could we practice creativity?
Yeah.
We are learning from the early church, there's ways that they were creative. We're learning there were two things that almost always opposed their creativity.
Yep.
It's the approval rating thing and Christians arguing. So how can we practice? The first one we would suggest in our world today, as we learn from Acts, is we've got to start reframing obstacles as opportunities. We as followers of Jesus uniquely believe that a man, Jesus, who is the Son of God, he was crucified on a cross. And we believe, because of the testimony of hundreds of witnesses, they saw him alive 3 days later.
Right.
In other words, we believe that the worst thing that can happen to us, a conflict, an issue, a tension, a problem, God can resurrect you from it. God can overcome that. So if that's our foundational belief as followers of Jesus, then that means things like COVID-19, that means things like racial tensions and the issues of justice, social justice in our day, whatever it is at home you're worried about with your family, problems you're managing, depression, anger issues, whatever, we need to reframe our obstacles as opportunity. Not that we even need to, we get to.
Yeah.
We believe that God can resurrect people from the dead. He resurrected Jesus. That's our hope. And then that means we need to start thinking it as a church. How is COVID not just this obstacle to gripe about or to be sad about or to keep saying, oh, we're not meeting yet. And I mean, I'm bummed out. I want it to happen tomorrow. But at the end of the day, I can't change what's happening. Right? So how do I say, hey, COVID, this is actually an opportunity in disguise?
Yeah, and it's actually not disguised very well at all. It's an opportunity. And
Yeah.
if I just see it as an obstacle, I just see it as something to cause anxiety and stress. It does that.
It does.
But how do you, reframing, I love that word because you can't just change your mind. See it a different way. Like
Right.
if I take a picture that's in a frame and I want to put a different frame around it, it just takes some time and effort.
Yep.
But it's a simple process. You just do it.
It makes a picture look even better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can reframe. The second thing, and then we're going to unpack how this is happening.
That's great.
How we're even practicing this as a church.
I love
the
that.
second thing I think is to practice creativity in your life, reframe obstacles into opportunities.
Yep.
And then second, act like an entrepreneur. And it's not a church word, but an entrepreneur, you get this, right? Like an entrepreneur is somebody, a startup business.
Shark Tank.
Shark Tank, yeah.
The Prophet. Right.
I love The Prophet. That show's so fun. But what if our church really was a startup church? What if we were a church plant? What if we were relaunching Christ Church of Flagstaff for the very first time right now? How would we act?
What would we do different?
What if your family was new
Yeah.
today? And how could you be creative? Because startups are more creative because they realize they don't have it all figured out yet.
Yeah, they're humble about it, right?
Yeah.
They're starting
Yeah.
from stage one, so they're not worried about
Right.
all the pressure of maintaining what's been.
Right. And this
Yep.
idea of entrepreneur, I mean, think about back to what you said earlier, Acts 2 versus Acts 17.
Yep.
Acts 2 is the establishment, Jewish religion, thousands of years of history, all the way back to Abraham, Moses, the patriarchs,
Yeah.
added on
Yep.
something in addition to what was already there. That's Acts 2. And the add-on's really important. It's Jesus and the resurrection. Huge add-on. But it's an add-on to the old ways
Yep.
in a common worldview. Acts 17 is Paul, an entrepreneur
Yeah.
for Jesus,
Right.
a church planter, not a pastor of an established
He's
church.
writing the manual as he goes.
He's taking over new territory.
Yeah.
So see obstacles as opportunities
Yep.
and think like an entrepreneur. That's how you can practice creativity. And that's what we're going to talk about in our church, how we're doing that, how you do it in your business, in your classroom.
Yeah.
You're going to have to do this if you're a school teacher.
Yeah, so how
because
is-
August is going to look different than last August.
Oh,
We have opportunities.
so how then? How is CCOF
Right.
Reframing and practicing creativity now?
Right.
You wanted to mention a couple things our church is doing.
Yeah.
How are we reframing our schedule?
Yeah, we're going to reframe our schedule. We see that COVID has been this obstacle that we're going to make an opportunity out of. And so we're changing our schedule post-COVID so that we can reach more of the ones around us Jesus has called us to reach.
Right.
We are the 99.
Yep.
And we need to go after more of the ones who have just sat through this horrible time in our culture and they
Yeah.
need Jesus. So we're going to do this. When we gather in person, again, we're going to stay online. Like this is going to keep happening. You'll be able to see it here. But when we gather in person, our services will be only on Sundays, the
Okay.
in-person gathering.
So no more Saturday services.
Right. And the times on Sunday will be 8:30, 10 a.m., 11:30 a.m., 4 p.m.
Awesome.
in the room.
So 4 services on Sunday.
Right. And then you'll still be able to get this access online.
Cool.
And then at 7 p.m., so excited that our first services in August will be at the corner. As students are coming back to NAU, some will
Yeah.
probably stay online, some will be in person.
Yeah, our plan is August 16th, I heard.
Yeah, because school's starting earlier this year, and so Wes and that team, everybody's getting, geared up. The building's almost done. It's like just maybe even done today, like a few days away from
Right.
being completely renovated. Praise God. Thank you for helping us with that.
Awesome.
And so we're gonna have middle school service for kids. Those,
Yeah.
That 8:30, 11:30.
Yep, that'll be at those 2 services. Yep.
Just Kids, our ministry for special needs families.
Yep.
And their kiddos will be at 11:30 during that service.
Yep.
High school is gonna change.
Yeah, high school ministry is going to move to Monday nights. And that is because we've gathered a lot of data and people even from the local school district about what will schedules be like, and that Monday night makes a lot more sense than
Yeah.
Sunday night.
Yeah, and so
Yep.
we've been talking to a lot of you, our volunteers, our leadership teams, you've been hearing about this, and maybe this is the first time you're hearing about it. We're gonna
Right.
do some email, and you'll hear all the data, all the information, all the dates, specifics. We're planning on right now, and just hear this very loosely, July 12th
Yeah.
is the date we plan to gather again in person. And here's what I can't tell you today, which is what, June, I don't know, what's the date?
I don't even know it today. It's the 17th.
Who cares? Like,
Yeah,
it's June.
right. Yeah.
Every day is the same.
Yep.
June 17th. On July 12th, we don't know what things will look like. We're going to take all the precautions and we're going to be safe.
Yep.
But yesterday, the 16th of June,
Yep.
was the single largest day for new COVID cases in Arizona.
Yeah.
And so I can't tell you with any certainty what things will look like on July 12th, mask, no mask, how many people in the room, full, just a few. I don't know, friends. We'll let you
We're
know.
striving for
But
that date.
We're
but
moving
we don't know.
towards that date.
We don't know.
That's our plan.
Yep.
And we'll see what happens. We're making this change because we want to reach more and more people who don't know Jesus in northern Arizona.
Which is also why we're still staying here digitally, right, Chris?
Exactly.
Like that's, even though we're going to change our church like times in person,
Right.
we're going to always have a digital service like this available.
Right, because if we were starting a new church today, that's what we would do.
That's right.
We would be online. We'd be more online than we've ever been before, and we're going to be.
So here's the connection for us at home. How could reframing your schedule, how could that be something that allows you more opportunities, and really to reframe all these obstacles in your life as opportunities? How could looking at your schedule differently allow you to be used by God to reach the one? We all have influence and connections to people who are the one. Maybe even your own kids, your own grandkids, maybe they would follow Jesus more this year, this summer, because we're not rushing back to our old pre-COVID schedule that was really hurried, really crammed, really busy, and we never had time for youth group. We never had time to connect with each other because soccer tournaments had me here, and my team had me going over there, and the dance thing happened here. How do you and I reframe our schedules again? A lot of our families, if we're honest, before COVID, and maybe if we're honest, we're rushing back to this already, we're obsessed with success. We're obsessed with achievement. We're obsessed with distraction and busyness. We're obsessed with all the ways that we've got to be glued to our screen, right? I say this now as I'm holding a screen.
You're preaching now.
I don't, it's not missed on me, the irony of that, like that we are a generation addicted to these things. What does it mean for us to reframe our schedules so we're freer? Maybe that's one of the lessons God's been trying to teach us in this season, is there were things we were doing before we shouldn't keep doing in the future.
Yeah, if we could, all of us in our own lives as just people who are together, our church said, what can we reframe in this obstacle to an opportunity? What could you do that at home with your schedule? That's what we decided was a huge piece for us, was to reframe our schedule and to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Just look at being an entrepreneur in your family. Not just where you work or your career, your dreams, or your side hustle.
Right.
What if you took that view to your family and you didn't go back?
Yeah.
What if you didn't sign up your kids for all the things? That's like, right now, the average person in our church attended in person 1.6 times a month.
Yeah.
What are your kids learning about Jesus at soccer practice?
Yeah.
The bike rides you've been able to do. I see it on your social media. You love that. Don't sign up for the dance class. And even if you can't make that reframe, what we're reframing is so that we can go. We can reframe ourselves as a church so that our stressed out, overly scheduled, screen-addicted generations, and it used to be just the next generation were described with those words. Now we've all become them.
We're all there together.
The last 12 weeks.
Yes.
And even if you stay there, we're going to bring Jesus to the next generation, to every generation, Northern Arizona, wherever they are, on a screen, stressed out, overly scheduled, or in this room. Whichever place it needs to be, we will be there with the message of Jesus creatively coming in new ways.
What's crazy to me is to think about, even in the ways that we were forced into reframing our schedule over the last several months, how much it's created more time for conversations.
Yeah.
And I can't help but wonder if there's just something good for all of us to go. If I can reframe my schedule, is that an opportunity to have even more bold conversations? We've seen in the book of Acts, the earliest Christians were bold. They thought outward. They weren't always inward. And they had to fight that tension.
Right.
And they're creative. And when you and I have a schedule that is leading us rather than us leading our schedule,
That's good.
We're not able to be open to bold conversation. We're not even able to have conversations. We're too busy. Interruptions are not allowed, and we're stressed when we have them.
Yeah.
And I can't help but wonder if we reframe our schedule, we will see the connection from creativity to boldness and thinking outward. Those things are absolutely connected to one another. An essential church is bold, outward, and creative, and that can only happen if we keep thinking like an entrepreneur and reframe our schedule.
Yeah, because we said the very first time we talked about boldness a couple weeks ago is that Acts 5:29.
Yeah.
We must obey God rather than human beings.
That's right.
And if you're going to live for approval ratings, if you're going to argue about Christian things and all the divisive, not even Christian things, you're just going to argue with people, you can't be creative.
Yep.
You can't be bold. You're not looking outward.
Yep.
You're still looking inward. And that's the story of Acts. You just said it. The story of Acts is when bold people looked outward, and then were creative in sharing the resurrection of Jesus.
Yeah.
That's all we have to offer this world and ourselves and our families and our kids and everyone around us is simply the hope of resurrection in Jesus Christ.
That's right.
And
Which I would take this opportunity to say, we have been trying to do this already as a church. And I want to encourage you to write this down or mark it in your calendar, put it as an alarm in your phone. On June 30th, we're going to have another scheduled time where we get to have unique conversations, where we get to like just visit with one another, find our story, and explore Jesus. It's called The Deck, and we've already done one about a week ago. It was awesome. We had great conversation, and I just want to encourage you. The reason we're scheduling them is that we need them to be scheduled. We need to reframe how we look at our pace, our calendar, and we're going to make sure that every 2 or 3 weeks there is another deck gathering so that digitally, so that you're able to have these intentional conversations. So as you're thinking about this and hearing this, we have something built into our church now that you're able to just go and be a part of a conversation. There's a host to make sure we start and end on time, that makes sure that we have a safe, welcoming environment for anyone, for any questions, and for any ways that you might want to explore Jesus. So
Yeah.
I just hope you guys will more and more take advantage of that as we move forward in the summer.
Yeah, because for sure, if you're hearing this and you're like, I don't know Jesus, I don't understand that completely, but I want to know more, The Deck is a place where you go. But also, I'd say that you want to we're challenging you to have a bold conversation. Maybe it's you come to The Deck with a friend, with your spouse, with a family member, a coworker,
your teenager, whatever.
That neighbor you've been talking to the last few weeks. Because here's the thing, if we're going to be a church that's essential for the next generation, we have to practice being creative. We have to look outward. We have to be bold. We keep saying it because we do this because we have living hope. And we're going to sing a song called Living Hope. The guys are going to lead us through it. And I hope that when you hear this song, that you'll participate. And the way I want you to participate is I want you to be praying for someone in your life, someone you care about deeply, who needs Jesus' living hope, who needs the resurrection to happen in their soul. Because it happened in history and it's changed the world. And we are surrounded by people who desperately need living hope today. We're going to say there's salvation in your name, Jesus Christ. We're going to declare when you sing out this song that he's our living hope. And will you be praying for someone who we can creatively reach together and show them this living hope?
Yeah, as we like see these lyrics and we sing it together, imagine the one person in your mind who you never could think would ever sing this song.
Right.
And I wonder if we put them at the forefront of our mind as we say, God, I give them to you. God, I trust them to you. God, help them to find you as their living hope.
That's our prayer. God, make it so. Join us in singing this song.
How great the chasm that lay between us. How high the mountain I could not climb. In desperation, I turned to heaven and spoke your name into the night. Then through the darkness, your loving kindness tore through the shadows of my soul. The work is finished, the end is written. Jesus Christ, my living hope. Who could imagine so great a mercy? What heart could fathom such boundless grace? The God of ages stepped down from glory to wear my sin and bear my shame. The cross has spoken, I am forgiven. The King of Kings calls me his own. Beautiful Savior, I'm yours forever. Jesus Christ, my living hope. Hallelujah, praise the one who set me free. Hallelujah, death has lost its grip on me. You have broken every chain. There's salvation in your name, Jesus Christ, my living salvation in your name, Jesus Christ, my living hope. Then came the morning that sealed the promise. Your buried body began to breathe. Out of the silence, the roaring lion declared the grave has no claim on me. Then came the morning that sealed the promise. Your buried body began to breathe. Out of the silence, the roaring lion declared the grave has no claim on me. Jesus, yours is the victory. Yeah. Hallelujah. Praise the one who set me free. Hallelujah. Death has lost its grip on me. You have broken every chain. There's salvation in your name, Jesus Christ, my living hope. Hallelujah. Praise the one who set me free. Hallelujah. Death has lost its grip on me. You have broken every chain. There's salvation in your name, Jesus Christ, my living hope. Jesus Christ, my living hope. Oh God, you are my living hope.
Thanks so much for joining us today. It's always an honor to know that people are watching this service online with all of us together or at a later time. Thanks for being here. Thanks also for your generosity. Did you know that during this COVID season, we've been able to not only maintain our commitments to all of our local and global partners, but we've also been able to give generously to places like Sunshine Rescue Mission and to the work that Jackie Holgate is doing with Mountaintop Community Church in the reservation. If you haven't seen the video online, you should go on our social media and check out that video. It's because of your giving that we've been able to, I would even say miraculously, be generous in this season. So thanks for that. Remember, you can go online or to the app at any time, and there's lots of ways to give. Well, let's just get ready for communion now. If you don't have your communion elements, now would be a time to pause the video and go grab them because we're about to take communion together. So I'll give you a second to do that. I love the song that we just sang, Living Hope. And I think the thing I love about it is that line, we have a living hope. And that hope is not in some like random chance that things will work out, but our hope is founded on the living God of the universe. And the reason that we have access to that hope and access to that living God of the universe is because of what Christ did on the cross, which we're about to celebrate with communion right now. So let's go ahead and let's take the bread. And remember, this is the body of Christ given for you so that we have access to the living hope. Let's take it together. This is the blood of Christ shed for you so that we have access to that living hope. Let's take it together. Father, thank you so much that you are a foundation for true hope. Thank you so much that as we are creative in sharing who you are so much more creative in meeting us moment by moment in our daily lives, giving us access to hope in place of fear, giving us access to joy instead of anxiety. And so we just thank you so much for what you do for us because of what you did for us on the cross. Just praise you, God, and thank you for who you are. In Jesus' name.
Peace, bring it all to peace. Storm surrounding me, let it break at your name still. Call the sea to still, the waves in me to still. Every wave at your name, Jesus, Jesus. You make the darkness tremble, Jesus, Jesus. You silence fear, Jesus, Jesus. You make the darkness tremble, Jesus, Jesus. Breathe, call these bones to live. Call these lungs to sing once again. I will praise Jesus, Jesus. You make the darkness tremble, Jesus, Jesus. You silence fear, Jesus, Jesus. You make the darkness tremble, Jesus, Jesus. Jesus, Jesus. You make the darkness tremble, Jesus, Jesus. You silence fear, Jesus, Jesus. You make the darkness tremble, Jesus, Jesus. Your name is a light that the shadows can't deny. Your name cannot be overcome. Your name is a light forever lifted high. Your name cannot be overcome. Jesus, Jesus. You make the darkness tremble, Jesus, Jesus. You silence fear, Jesus, Jesus. You make the darkness tremble, Jesus, Jesus. Jesus, Jesus. Jesus, Jesus. Your name is a light that the shadows can't deny. Your name cannot be overcome. Your name is a light forever lifted high. Your name cannot be overcome. Your name is a light that the shadows can't deny. Your name cannot be overcome. Your name is a light forever lifted high. Your name cannot be overcome. Jesus, Jesus. You make the darkness tremble, Jesus, Jesus. You silence fear, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. You make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus.